Hello, welcome to the Lone Show. I'm your host, John May Lone. In this episode, no regulars, because reasons, as always. As for our guest, he's from Fort Myers, Florida. He is a best-selling author, counselor, executive coach, international speaker, radio, TV, podcast host, sports psychology coach, and all-faith minister whose mission is to, wow, it's a lot of words for me personally, but however, we'll get into that. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you David Essel.
I am so happy to be with you. Thank you. I know the bio is a little long, that's for sure. But, you know, the whole idea that we're together here today is to try to lift this world and to help people out. We know the world is struggling. We know there isn't a country, there isn't a city, there isn't a state that isn't struggling in some way. So I really appreciate you bringing me on your show. We need more shows like this that bring light to the world versus the darkness that we see every day on the news, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So, how's life?
Well, you know, in the state of Florida, we're doing good. We just went through a small hurricane. Now, we call them small. If you've been here for a long time, a Hurricane 1 isn't really a hurricane. It's just like a little storm. So we just went through that, and now there'll be some cleanup to go through. Besides that, everything is great. You know, we're having a chance to touch the world. We every day we're giving away more and more of our products, books, programs, just to try to give people some hope. You know, if there's anything I think we need right now, and this is one of the reasons why TJ, my publicist, signed me up with your show, is we need to have that hope. We need to have the feeling that there are people out there that care about us, that there are people out there that may have ideas to help us get through this period of suffering that so many of us are in. So, you know, we're here together. We've got to stay together and try to figure out ways to work through this together.
Yes, absolutely. And in terms of being an author, what books have you written or in the process of writing so far?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting story. In 1987, I had a several-hour interview with a Vedic astrologer from India who brought an interpreter because the astrologer couldn't speak English. And he told me, now this is 1987, he said I'd write 17 books. And I looked at him like he was crazy. And he knew my expression on my face, and he started laughing. And he said to the gentleman that could speak English, he doesn't believe me, does he? And his interpreter said, no, he doesn't think, he thinks you're wacko. He's never written a book. He doesn't know how to write books. He thinks you're pretty crazy. And the guy said, that's okay. I'm going to tell him a lot of things he's going to think is crazy, but every one of them is going to come true. I never would have imagined that I would have written, as of today, 16 books. I have no background in journalism, no background in broadcast journalism, literature, anything. And so I think one of the great examples, the reason I bring this up, and thank you for asking about the books, is because so many times people limit their ability to make a difference in their own lives and this world. If I didn't start writing books when I did over 25 years ago, I would never have been able to touch people with the way the books touch people. I wouldn't have been able to experience what it's like to write a book and to write another one and another one. And over the last 20 plus years, and I will make this point, I think this is a very important point. I wrote books for 20 years before we got any recognition at all. We didn't sell any. I mean, when I say we didn't sell any, we might have sold a couple hundred books. I just kept writing. And this is an important part of my story, is that, you know, when you find something that you want to do, that you enjoy doing, and success doesn't come right away, keep doing it. Do it for the feeling of the joy. You know, I kept writing books because I love to write. I didn't know I was going to write. I never would have become an author. I was a jock. My Lord, I played basketball in college. I came out, and one of the things that you had mentioned was I have a sports psychology degree. My first jobs out of college, I was working with athletes. I've never in a million years did I think I had a creative bone in my body. And then all of a sudden, I was about 30 years of age, and one of my assistants sat down with me one day and said, David, how come you haven't written books yet? And I said, what do you mean? I have no creative talent. I can't write books. I can help athletes, but I can't write books. She goes, that's so wrong. And I said, why are you saying that's so wrong? She goes, I look at the way you talk to clients on the phone and you tell amazing stories. I look at the way you work with my little girls. They were like 10 and 12. She said, you come up with these stories right off the top of your head. Like, why don't, and that was the reason that I started writing books. I didn't write because I thought I could become a #1 best-selling author. Even though I always wanted to, that wasn't the reason I got into writing. I didn't think I could ever write a book because I had no experience, no education, no knowledge. And yet, we have 16 books. The Astrologer from 1987 is going to be right. We have a 17th book I'm working on right now. And probably at the end of the day, I'll end up writing 20 or 25 books. Coming from a guy that never thought he would write a book, this is why I do the work I do. Don't limit yourself into stopping and saying, I could never become this. I could never earn that amount of money. I could never have a great relationship. I could never have a great body. I mean, all those kind of things are things I've said to myself. And all they do is sabotage our success. So give yourself a break. Have some compassion for yourself. Have some understanding that people like David Essel have become best-selling authors without any experience at all, without anyone helping them and teaching them how to do it. I haven't had AI, okay? So AI wasn't around to write my books for me. I had to actually write the books myself. So if I can learn how to do this, you can learn how to do something that'll magically turn your life around as well. But you've got to be willing to risk and to try some things you may not succeed in order to find success.
Yes, absolutely. And out of all the other jobs or opportunities, which one of them have you enjoyed doing the most so far?
That's such a tough question to answer. I do so many different things. I mean, we work in the world of relationships. I write books. I host a podcast. I do these interviews like I'm doing with you right now, multiple times a day, 5 days a week. We just got booked with more television shows coming up at the end of August. And, I don't know if I have a favorite thing. I mean, I love my counseling work, which is combined with my life coaching work. I love that so much. I just mentioned how much I love radio, TV, podcasting, writing books. I don't think that there's anything that I could say is my number one. Although the biggest shock to me is writing 16 books. I'll tell you, that's something I never, ever thought I would do in my life. And the fact that this guy from India that couldn't speak English told me in 87 it was going to happen, and it is happening, is quite mind-blowing.
Yes, of course. It happens. Are there any jobs or opportunities you haven't done yet that you would like to do someday?
Wow, that's a great question. Let me think. Things I haven't done yet. The one thing that comes to mind is that I've never spoken to a professional athletic team. Even though I have a sports psychology degree, I work with professional athletes even to this day. I still have several athletes I work with, but I've never spoken to a team. I've never done like an inspirational speech to a professional athletic team. So I think that would be pretty cool. That would be number one. Number two, because the Olympics are going on right now, I think the coolest thing in the world I could think of that I've never done would be to meet some of these Olympic heroes from multiple countries, not just my own United States. I mean, I look at these stories of these individuals coming from like the Ukraine, the woman who won the high jump last night from Ukraine. Oh my God, I was so happy for her. I would love to meet her. Oh my God, there's something I've never done before. I've never met an Olympic gold medalist. And I would love to meet her and tell her how happy I am for her and for her country, that they have something to celebrate in the middle of a ridiculous freaking war, for God's sake. So yes, there are things I haven't done that I would love to.
Great, fabulous. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Well, I'll tell you, it will be an island. I will tell you that. I have had a love affair with islands ever since I can remember. I can't remember not loving islands. So now the question is going to be which island, right? Which island would I want to live on? The islands that I've visited that have been really fascinating, one would be Kauai in Hawaii. I think was just an amazing island. It's remote. It's where what's that movie with the dinosaurs was filmed? The big famous one, I forget about it. Something Park.
Jurassic Park.
Thank you, Jurassic Park. A lot of it was filmed in Kauai, in the middle of these valleys. So Kauai might be, one place that I'd love to live from an island perspective. I've never been to Costa Rica. I have friends that have been there that said it's absolutely gorgeous. So I think if I was going to live anywhere, it would be an island. I'm just not sure which one yet.
Okay, fair enough. Sounds good. If you were given 500 acres of land, what would you use that land for?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, the first probably 50 acres would be for a dog park, meaning a dog rehabilitation. I have a huge thing in my heart for abused dogs, especially. So if I had 500 acres, I would take a certain percentage of those acres and turn it into this massively huge dog park recovery restoration facility, without a doubt. Um, I think that's a lot of land. I'm just trying to think of land. I think the second thing I would do is I would try to find out, is there any way to use the land without overusing the land? In other words, could it be turned into farmland where people could grow their own crops? Could it be rented out? I have friends over in Europe. It's kind of interesting where they have farmland. They don't farm themselves. They rent it out and they take a percentage of what the people grow and what they sell. So I think, giving individuals that maybe need an opportunity to become an entrepreneur and have their own land and have their own farm, I would like to try to figure out a way where we could help more people with that amount of land. It's a great question. I've never been asked anything even close to it before, but it's got me thinking.
Yeah, it sure has. Have you ever met anyone famous?
I've met a lot of famous people. Kenny Loggins, who's a famous singer, he was the one that did the song for the first Top Gun, a movie with Tom Cruise that was huge. Meatloaf, another singer. Jenny McCarthy, who hosts The Masked Singer. It's a huge TV show here in the United States. Trying to think, I've met a lot of athletes that people probably wouldn't know their names. Greg Louganis, who was a gold medalist diver for the United States back in the 80s and 90s. I've met a lot of celebrities, that have either been in movies or athletics. And I'll tell you, Jenny McCarthy, I'll just start with her. She's probably one of the biggest celebrities. She's the one that really pushed our first book into becoming a #1 bestseller, actually. The name of the book was Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life, but This Book Will. And Jenny had me on her Sirius XM radio show to promote the book, but she wasn't a fan of it at first. And she actually brought me on the show, and it was kind of a dare. And she said, David, I'm going to dare you to convince me that your book is right. Because I've been telling my audience that the power of positive thinking and the secret and the law of attraction is all we need. And your book says it's all a bunch of rubbish. So go ahead and sell me. So she gave me 3 minutes. And at the end of the 3 minutes, she stopped. She shook her head. She looked at me with this big smile and said, David Essel is the new leader of the positive thinking movement. And that was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had with a celebrity, and then I ended up being back on her show 4 or 5 more times. But she is probably one of the most intelligent women I've ever met. She is one of the funniest women I've ever met. She is by far one of the top radio and TV hosts I have ever met. And I've been doing this work in radio and TV for 45 years. She's absolutely stunning and gorgeous, but she is so humble. I mean, I cannot say enough about Jenny McCarthy as a celebrity and as a person that really cares about others. So I've been super blessed to meet some pretty high-ranking celebrities. And what's funny? The funniest thing is that every one of them have been cream puffs. I mean, every one of them have been so nice, no attitude, no arrogance, no overconfidence at all, just really great human beings.
Yes. Absolutely. Would you rather never use social media again or never watch another movie or TV show again?
Oh my gosh. I could give up social media. I'll tell you that right now. I'm on it only because we have to be. My purpose on earth is to lift other people. So if you go to any of my social media pages, all you're going to see is positive stuff. But I am disgusted with it. I think it's turned into a bunch of trash. People abusing each other, people beating on each other on social media. It's really easy to sit behind, a screen and to attack people. Mike Tyson, the famous boxer, has a great line. And he says, if people on social media were standing in front of me, they would never post what they are about to post about me on social media because I'd knock them out. And so we have a bunch of not very courageous people on social media that are really creating bedlam and hell on earth for us all. So if I had to give up anything, I could easily give up social media, even though it's part of what I love to do to lift people's spirits. I think it's just turned into a cesspool, unfortunately. Maybe at some point it'll turn around and it'll become much more positive in nature. It's probably one of the reasons I haven't given up yet. I'm still hoping that we can get more and more people to turn this into a positive experience of being on social media. I don't have a lot of faith that's going to happen very easily, but I can't give up. It's the reason I'm here.
Yes, absolutely. There's always potential for the better.
That's
no
right.
matter how bad things get.
100% agree with you.
If you had to lose one of your senses, which would you choose to lose?
Oh my goodness gracious. to lose one of my senses. Smell and taste are combined, so I wouldn't be able to go there. Oh, my goodness. This is a question I don't think anyone would want to answer, right? It's like, who wants to give up a sense? Taste, smell, sight, hearing? My Lord, I am struggling with this. Yeah, but first, I'm not going to answer your question probably, because I want to say this. Your question is a beautiful question. Your question just made me realize how much I love all of my senses and how much I don't want to be without any of them. Can we survive by being blind or not smelling or tasting or hearing? Oh, my God, there are people that create monumental work who are deaf-blind. Helen Keller comes to mind, right? But they didn't have a choice. And I think I'm going to stay with a non-response because I'll tell you what, your question has really got me going in a direction of thinking how blessed I am to have all of my senses operating at the highest potential that they are right now. I'm going to walk away from this question with an immense feeling of gratitude. Thank you for asking because you've opened up my mind.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah, beautiful question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Would you rather speak all languages or talk to animals?
Talk to animals. Oh my God, that's an easy one for me. Oh, I have this love affair with animals, and it comes from my mom. She passed 3 years ago, I think it is, and she indoctrinated all three of her children with this absolute love of animals, love of nature, worship of animals, worship of nature. Holy cow. Just thinking of the impact she had on my life, And these tears and this emotion is so positive. It's pure love. I'm loving my mom right now as you ask that question, because if she was here, she would say the same thing. She would want to talk to animals.
Yeah, I definitely feel you, man.
Yeah. My mom, I have a picture of her. Animals loved her. She had these wild rabbits in the summertime. They would come out from underneath the house and she would feed them by hand, for God's sake, and hummingbirds would hang around her. She was like a Mother Teresa in many ways, a very sacred woman, and taught me a lot.
Yes, most definitely. Where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
Let's say I'll be 88 years of age in 20 years. I see myself doing the same stuff I'm doing right now. I see myself doing interviews. I see myself writing books. I see myself staying with my counseling. I don't see, there's not going to be any change in regards to my purpose on earth. There's no retirement for me. There's no such thing. I have no interest. I'm not a workaholic as much as I just want to continue to make a difference in this world. And, I've been very, very blessed. I've had immense challenges like a lot of us have, but I've been very, very blessed as well. I feel this life is a gift to us. And too many times, there's a statistic that I quote that just was reinforced by another study not too long ago. And it's a shocking one to many. It's not to me, but it is to many. 10% of people on this earth are here to maximize their potential, to try to see how much they can help this world, how much they can help themselves, how much they can make a difference. 10% of people are here to maximize their potential. 90% of people are here waiting to die.
Yeah.
And that's a very true, but a very sad statistic. It's very true. I look at the percentage of people that could be living an incredible life, a life of sobriety, let's say, but they'll be addicted to food and to alcohol and to nicotine and to pot and to social media and to the news for the rest of their lives because they are here to die. They're just waiting and they're wasting their time. They're wasting their time watching reality shows on TV. They're just wasting their time, And then the 10% that are out there hustling. 10% that are out there, and that 10%, they can be in poverty or they could be in a multimillionaire, but they're here to make a difference in this world. You look at all the Olympic athletes going back to the Olympics, they're in the top 10%, right? We have 16-year-olds at the Olympics, for God's sake, 17, 19-year-olds at the Olympics. It's amazing. They're already been maximizing their potential probably since 8 or 10, to be able to be in the Olympics at 16. So I think that, one of the messages that we have that's a very strong message is that we ask everyone to get out of their comfort zone. Get the hell out of that comfort zone, coming home at night and having those several beers or glasses of wine, coming home at night and immediately turning the news on. Get the hell out of that comfort zone and really start living. Start taking chances. Start putting yourself in positions that don't feel comfortable. Maybe volunteering at a dog shelter. Maybe you have this love for dogs, but it would break your heart to go in. Well, break your heart and go in and make a difference in the damn world. Don't worry about your heart. Go make a difference. That's really what we're here for. And that might mean also learning that you can stop and talk to a homeless person. And 99% of the time, they're not going to bite you, okay? You can talk to an amputee. You can talk to a burn victim. You can talk to, someone in a wheelchair. And what I'm saying right now is part of this program we created, Look to Lift Others. In our program, we did it because we want people to become part of that 10%. We want the world to start to change, to start to really make a difference, to look at how they can maximize their potential. And one of the ways we can do it is really simple. You just look to lift others. If you go to our website, talkdavid.com, you'll find Look to Lift Others right there. You can read stories of people that have written to us. There was an individual that was very prejudiced. He didn't like black people and he didn't like obese people. And he joined our program because he wanted to learn how he could maximize his potential and look to lift others. And so I said to him, if you look at a part of our culture that you don't like, that you try to stay away from, what would it be? And he said, oh my God, I've always struggled with black people. I've always struggled with obese people. So I said, okay, well, in our program, we then look to lift an obese person. We look to lift a black person. We actually put ourselves in a position of doing something that's going to scare the hell out of us in order to maximize our potential. And the greatest story in the world, we get off the phone. He goes, David, this is going to be the hardest thing for me to do. I said, I know, but it's going to be so worth it. 2 days later, he's in a grocery store. He's looking for a checkout. He sees one. And the only one that didn't have a long line was an obese black woman. And he said, oh my God, I have to go in this line. So he gets into the line, he goes up to her and he looks in her eyes and he says, ma'am, he says, those glasses look just beautiful on you. And she looked up and she was so shocked, tears started coming down her cheeks. And she said to the gentleman, can you stand right there? And he said, of course. And she walked around from her cash register and she said, sir, would you mind if I hugged you? Now imagine that. 2 people radically changed by one small instance, one small statement. Ma'am, those glasses look great on you. And now every time he goes into that store, he looks for that woman and he stands and waits in her aisle. And they do the same thing every day. Every time he sees her, she comes out from around the cashier and they hug. This is one of the things that is just gotten my heart so wide open. I see the pain and suffering in this world, just like anyone else that does my work. In the world of counseling, we may see it even more so because we do get people that have attempted suicide. We get people that have families who have a family member that was successful with suicide. We have people with all kinds of challenges and all kinds of things that are going on left and right, bringing them down. And we lift spirits. And one of the ways we lift spirits is by doing something I said earlier, and that's giving people hope. When we start to really look to lift others, there's a story, there's all kinds of stories of people that are now getting out of their cars and picking up turtles that are in the middle of the road when they never would have thought about it before, simply because it's one of the stories with our program, Look to Lift Others. So I think if we can do one thing in this mad, crazy, insane world to really start to shift everything, and we can shift everything, it would be to do what we're doing with the program. When you go into a store, look to see if someone needs a hand. If someone's in traffic and they're trying to get in, and you usually don't let people in, let people in traffic. It's these small things that you don't know how it might powerfully and positively affect another person's day. Instead of, giving people the finger and doing all these things in traffic, let's chill. Let's have a little compassion. Maybe you have to have compassion for yourself because this is the way you've always lived and it's time for you to change. And change can be hard. And that's okay because we want you in the 10% group. We don't want you in the 90% group waiting to die, coming home and eating donuts, waking up and eating donuts. All we're doing is waiting to freaking die. Let's do some things that are tough. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's get out of that comfort zone. Let's start doing things for others. My passion is never going to stop. So when you asked me, at 88, what am I going to be doing? It's going to be the very same thing I'm doing today. I have been gifted with a calling. Everyone's gifted with a calling. The difference is that I paid attention to it. And while everyone was telling me 45 years ago to get a safe job, to get a secure job, I became an entrepreneur with no money, no chance at all of having an opportunity to break out big by having big checks coming in every week. No. I did it a different way. Was it hard? Hell yeah. Was it worth it? Hell yeah. And I tell everyone the same thing. When you find your purpose, and to me, it's helping people. That's as simple as it is. When you find that purpose and you go after it, your life will radically change and you will get out of that 90% that are eating donuts waiting to die. And you're going to jump into the 10% because that's where the joy is. That's where the happiness is. That's where the service is. That's where we all need to be.
Yes, absolutely. If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
We can't believe he made it this far.
Yeah.
I think that would be the title. I swear to God. I mean, I had a failed suicide attempt in 1990. I had a 30-year addiction to alcohol and cocaine. I've gone through a lot.
Yeah, anything's possible.
And everything is possible. Thank you for saying that, and it's a great question because I know there was a lot of times that it was doubted that I would, be here at this time and space. And I'm really happy I am. I'll tell you that.
Yes, of course. If you could host a dinner party and you could invite 5 guests who are either dead or alive, who would you invite?
Oh, my God. Well, I mean, I'm going to bring Richard Bach. He is the author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and his books have sold over 100 million copies. I mean, without a doubt, I would have Richard there. I would have Jesus Christ. I would have Buddha. I'm trying to think who else I would have. I would have Martin Luther King Jr. Let me try to think. I would probably have the former National League Baseball All-Star pitcher, Sandy Koufax. I would have him because when I was about 8 years of age, I had his name on the back of a baseball jersey because I wanted to be like Sandy Koufax. I think that's the 5 I would probably have.
Good.
Yes.
Do you think a hot dog is a sandwich?
Yes. If it's in a bun. If it's by itself, no. If it's in a bun, yes.
Good point. If you could go back in time, what decade would you want to live in?
I think about this question, believe it or not, quite a bit. Honestly, I think what I would like to do is I would like to have been born before the automobile, before mechanization. I have a real drawing. I'm drawn very, very strongly to landscaping and gardening and doing that kind of stuff. And I really think that if I was born in the age before mechanization, before automobiles and all that kind of stuff, I'm one of those live by the land guys, and I think I could have done quite well and been very, very happy, surrounded by nature. I'm a massive nature freak. So I'm going to not just say a decade. We're probably talking, I don't know, maybe the 17, like that would be my guess, would be when I truly would have loved to have been born. And who knows, I probably was back then, and I'm having memories of a former life, possibly.
Yeah, true. What was the last book you've read?
Oh, my gosh. Power versus Force, Dr. David Hawkins. One of my favorite books of all time. It talks about human consciousness. Now, I will say it's the last book I've just read. I've read it probably 30 times. But what I do is when I go to the gym every day, I pick a book. And on the treadmill, I'll read for 30 minutes or so. So his is the book. And the other interesting thing is that most of the books I read are from longer ago, like 20, 30, 40 years, 100 years ago are most of the books I read. I don't read from many up-to-date authors. I'm much more drawn to older writers. Thich Nhat Hanh, one of the most incredible Vietnamese Buddhist writers for Zen Buddhism ever. I read a lot of his books. He just died about a year ago. He's got, I think, 50 books out, and many of them were written 20 years ago. So I'm more drawn to those type of writers. Power versus Force, for people that want to know more about human consciousness. I highly recommend it.
Sounds good, yes.
Mm.
And that is all we have for this episode. It's great having you on, David, talking about your book and the inspirational stories and a lot of things related to it and so on. It's been great.
Listen, I so appreciate being on the show. Your questions were phenomenal. As you can tell, several of them stumped me, which I love. I love the fact that you were asking questions I didn't have immediate answers for. And the question about the senses, thank you. Oh, you have just opened my mind to be more grateful every moment for the senses I do have. So thank you for being so brilliant as a host. I love it.
You're welcome. And until next time, stay tuned for more.